Yo guys, welcome back to another video. So ST13 is finally out over in the West, and I just wanted to do a quick video running over the 3 leaders themselves and giving you guys some deck lists and some things to talk about, some things to look at. And yeah, I have a video out already for the black yellow Luffy leader, and I'm working on the Ace and SABO leader gameplay videos as well. But I just wanted to make this one so that there's one like all-inclusive video that you guys can watch too. It's kind of more like a beginner's guide. I'm not the best with any of these leaders. Black yellow Luffy is really hard to get the hang of. I do think I like Ace the most, and SABO is just a ton of fun to play. So if you're unfamiliar or unsure about the leaders, or just want some deck lists to try out, then hopefully this will be a good video for you. But without any further ado, let's jump in and let's get started. Alright, before we jump into the leaders themselves, I just wanted to maybe take a look at some of the key cards, not every single one in the starter deck. Obviously, as you can tell, like it's all about life manipulation, placing and taking life, changing the order, putting it how you want. Because all 3 of the decks revolve around like manipulating your own life and getting the kid versions out of Luffy, Ace, and SABO, and then you know, having them become the teenage versions, I guess, like the pre I don't know, the adolescent versions, right? And it's really strong because what you're doing is you're giving plus 2k, plus 4k, and possibly even plus 6k to your leaders. I think, I don't know if I forgot if there's a way to do 8k. You can do some pretty nutty combos, but like it takes a ton of setup. Normally you're getting to 7 or 9k, and the main Ace and Luffy have the most like potential for getting the kid versions into the adult versions and getting that plus, getting that buff. SABO is more of the outlier, where it does have a little bit more, you can be have a lot more variety with your deck building and everything. But I guess let's look at SABO. This is like, we'll look at the main like 3 cards, right? I'm just gonna say it right now, SABO, Ace, and Luffy are the best cards in this deck. You do get this is a cool 2k counter that you can run in Yamato decks and everything. Obviously, Garp is the search. This is a really good card. You can run this in all of them, mostly for Ace and Luffy. But really quickly, just before I actually look at the other ones, the whole thing here is you play the kid version and then activate main, trash this character, reveal the top card of your life. If it's the 5-cost version of that kid, whether it's SABO, Luffy, or Ace, then you can put the kid version in the trash and play the adult version from your life, and then give your own leader plus 2k for until the end of your opponent's turn. So that's the whole gimmick. That's the whole thing that this thing revolves around. This SABO is good because on play you trash your life and KO up to KO a cost 5 or less character of your opponents. So it's like a Thunderbolt, right? It's like an Onami. It's actually really clutch sometimes, and don't be afraid to trash your own life if you want to get rid of a 5-cost blocker, because it can be very strong. This is, in my opinion, the best card that came out of this entire starter deck, and I'm not just saying that as a Yamato main, but it is a really, really good card in Yamato. And even like Enels are running this in OP07 as like a rush tech card. It's just really good. Especially yellow, because a lot of the yellow decks like do revolve around getting down to 2 or 1 life pretty early. And yeah, on play, if you have 2 or less life, this character gains rush, and it's amazing in Yamato because it's basically a 5-cost 9k rusher. And then, like I said, the Garp is the searcher. You can get a monkey Luffy Ace with a cost of 5 or less, so it's essentially you're just getting the like adult or the kid version, right? And then I guess it's worth pointing out this Makino. This is a really good card. Until you get Flampe, you don't have a lot of options. From Flampe from EBO1, you don't have a lot of options to like kind of manipulate your own life. So this, you can take a life essentially and then reorder your life cards, which is really, really good in black yellow Luffy. Not as good in the other ones, but yeah, just a good card to point out. And then this Luffy is really, really good in black yellow Luffy, in my opinion. Not as good in the other ones, I don't think, just because black yellow Luffy revolves around getting down to 0 life, and you're going to be able to use this effect multiple times for free, essentially. And you just use it when you have life to get yourself down to 0 and draw a card at the same time. But it's an activate main once per turn. This character gets plus 2k until the start of your next turn. Then if you have 1 or more life, draw 1 card and trash the top card of your life. So you're getting rid of your life, but you're getting to draw a card from it. It can be very good, and becoming an 8k for essentially free for like the latter half of the game, where you're just going to be like using this effect before you use the leader effect, is really good. The 2K Yamato, this effect or this event is alright. It's a good like early game play if you want to set up your life. This event, not so much. I don't think it's very good. And then the searcher event is also really good. That's just another searcher, and this is kind of a tech option where you can run it in your decks, but is not necessary. So that's all the cards, all the main like important cards. Obviously, like Shanks is kind of cool. There's some like kind of niche effects where like I've run this in my blue yellow ace, and it's like come in really clutch in some instances, but they're not as consistent or dependable as some of the other cards. So go ahead and like go look at all the cards, try them out yourself. If you've bought the deck, I'm sure you've seen them, but yeah, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about some of the other like non-big player cards. And yeah, let's jump into the actual leaders and the decks themselves. All right, let's start this off with my favorite, blue yellow ace. Ace is one of my favorite characters of all time. Was so excited when this got announced because I had been running a lot of red ace throughout like OPO3, OPO4, and when this got announced, I was really excited for another ace leader. It's really strong too, and I do still kind of like the gameplay and like the play style of red ace better, but you know, this is still really cool. You can run ace, you can run the yellow ace, which is one of my other favorite cards. The leader effect is Dawn ×2, activate main once per turn. Top 5 cards of your deck. Add up to 1 5-cost character card to the top of your life face up. Then place the remaining cards at the bottom of your deck in any order. And at the end of your turn, send all face-up cards in your life to the trash. So essentially, look at top 5, place a 5-cost, and it's only 5 costs. It's not 5 or less, it's not 5 or more, only 5 costs onto your life, top of your life, face up. And then if you're not able to do something with that life, essentially at the end of your turn, it just goes to the trash. So this one is definitely the most like gotcha. It's the most risky. You're like gambling on it working, right? When this deck high rolls, it's incredibly strong. It can be like even just with starter deck 13, because a lot of these decks really get stronger throughout EBO1 and OPO7. Ace really benefits from OPO7 because it gets the 5-cost blue ace blocker that lets you look at the top 2 cards and kind of like rearrange it on the top or bottom from your hand as well, which is just really strong. And Egghead Luffy works well in this deck. There's just a few key cards that are kind of missing, but this deck is so strong that like when you high roll with this, even just the starter deck 13 cards, it's just really amazing. And I have a few cards teched in here that I think help with some of the disadvantages that come with not having the consistency and just like relying on that kind of gotcha aspect of everything. But yeah, so I'll just go through it here. We got 3 4-cost puddings. I know this becomes an even stronger card in OPO7 going up against decks like Black Yellow Luffy and Enel. But though, you know, Black Yellow Luffy is going to be present through EBO1 into OPO7, so anytime your opponent just gets the card advantage over you, I mean, even like a Reiju or something like that, you know, if your opponent has 7 or 8 cards and you don't have a better play, this is always still like a possibility, right? It's like it never really hurts you too bad to just play this card. I only run it at 3 right now just because I don't think it's as important as it does become later in like OPO7. To Satori 2K, it's another 5 cost. The thing here is we are trying to have some 5 costs that we can take advantage of. Until Flampe comes out, we don't have as many options of like taking our own life to just take the card, but that is why Hiyori is here. Essentially, if you whiff but it's still a 5 cost, like say you get a Satori or a Yamato, there's no way for you to use the kid versions of it to like get the card back, obviously. So you can just put it on the top of your life, play this Satori, take the card, so you're essentially drawing a card for free because that life was going to go to your trash anyways. So it doesn't, you're not like losing life, right? And then you can even plant one of the adult versions of the 3 brothers and then use the kid version to activate the effect and get the plus 2k, right? So Hiyori is actually one of the most important and strongest cards in this entire deck, which is awesome because I love Hiyori and I love this card. I love the alt art so much. So yeah, really awesome. I'm so glad you can use it in this deck. It works great in Black Yellow Luffy too. And then just to get this out of the way, we have the Sabo, Ace, Luffy, the kid versions of all three. And then we have the adult versions for all three as well. I've already gone over all the effects, so I'm not going to go over them again. This deck is pretty straightforward. It's like search, start using leader effect, and then try and get to 7-9 plus 2k plus 4k 7-9k as consistently as possible throughout the entire game. And then a lot of the decks run Sanji's Pilaf, because the main thing about this Ace deck is you want to have the kid versions in your hand, because you're relying on the leader effect to get the 5 costs into your life. You're relying on all the kids to already be in your hand, because if you draw into like 4 like, or if you draw into a bunch of just the adult versions of the three brothers, like, you're screwed. There's nothing you can do. You're kind of just you're playing a vanilla leader essentially, right? Unless you can manipulate it with like at least just getting the card draw from like putting a different 5 cost and then drawing from with Hiyori or something. So that's why you have this, is kind of like as a safety net, and just the trigger is amazing. And as someone who's played a lot of Blue Nami, it just feels good to run Sanji's Pilaf in another deck, if you know what I mean. But yeah, the main other tech card here that I think is just incredibly strong is the Gravity Blade. And this card is just so good. This helps you beat Black Yellow Luffy. Like, Black Yellow Luffy just dies to blue removal. It really does. You get rid of Sabos, you get rid of 5 cost blockers, because one of the things with this deck too is until you get 5 cost Ace blocker from OPO7, you don't have a lot of defense. You're relying on that leader effect to essentially give you the +2 and 4k that you're going to need to survive that turn. And yeah, you do run a lot of counter, but you need other options to like help yourself get rid of your opponent's board, and for when you need to go for game. Like if you establish a wide board and then just drop this, you're 10 Dawn, you drop this, and you got like a Luffy or 2, you know, you got like 2 to 4 like of your brothers on the board. I mean, you can just go ham, and it can. I've definitely won games just from using this late game, or like mid to late game. This is incredibly strong. I do think it's a good tech. I suggest trying it out, see if you like it. This deck, if you go second, you can get a really nice curve of just like being able to use leader effect like right away, essentially from your forward on turn, if you have the cards in hand. But actually recently I've been going first a lot too, and it's not too bad, because you really want to get search and the kids in your hand as early as possible. So Hiyori is really clutch too, because then you can just set things up yourself. Say you have an adult ace and a kid ace in your hand, but you have Hiyori, you can just play Hiyori, plant the adult ace, and then play kid ace, right? And this is really nice. So like, say you're on your 4 Dawn turn, right? You can play Hiyori, plant the ace, play the ace, and then activate effect. Do it all over again on your 6 Dawn turn. So it's really hard. Like the what seems the easiest is like just go second, but you can go first and like start searching, and you can always like swing 5 and use Sanji's Pilaf. And I found that using leader effect too much at the beginning can actually hurt you, because if you, sure, it's really strong to be 7k in your first couple of turns, but if you have the resources and you can hold on to them to mid to late game, that's where it's really going to benefit you. So that's why I think going first can be okay, but going second sometimes just gets you that like mwah, you just get the god curve and the god hand. And like I said, when this thing high rolls, it's amazing. But yeah, that's it for Ace. That's essentially the game plan. Let's move on to the next one. All right, next we got Black Yellow Luffy. Let's go over his leader effect. So per the rules, or according to the rules, or as an addition to the rules, your face-up life cards will be sent to the bottom of your deck instead of your hand. So unlike Ace, where it gets sent to your trash, these get sent to the bottom. So, which is good, because if not, you could just like, I mean, I guess you can't really do anything with Moria, but you could play like Rebecca and like start getting them back from trash or something, right? So it's great. And these need to go to the bottom of your deck. So that's just good. Dawn 2, activate main. Once per turn, you may discard 1 card from your hand. If your life is at 0, you may add up to 2 5-cost characters from your hand or trash to your life face up. And one important thing here is you can add it from your hand. I think a lot of people forget this. I forget this from time to time. It doesn't have to be in your trash. You do have to discard one no matter what, obviously. But you can like select a card from like a 5 cost from your trash and just put it in from your hand. Obviously, it's better if it's already in your trash because then you're not losing anything more out of your hand. But don't forget that you can put it in there from your hand. This deck is kind of like Red Purple Law, where when you play it on the sim, it can be kind of clunky, and I think that's why I struggle with the deck a little bit too, is because when you're playing it on the sim, it just doesn't feel very smooth. You have to like meticulously plan things out, because one misclick and you will just throw the game. Unfortunately, you'll just throw and you'll mess up and you're like, oh, I got it, and you'll just be like, all right, GG, I lost. But yeah, this is really this leader is really strong. Obviously, in OPO 7, Black Yellow Luffy is kind of a menace. Man, with Sakazuki gone, really, like, Black Luffy kind of only struggles into like blue removal and Red Purple Law a little bit, I guess. Just like any bottom decking removal. Like Red Purple Law is strong against Black Yellow Luffy, but I think honestly like Hancock or something is his worst enemy. But yeah. So the game plan is to get down to 0 life either as fast as possible or at like, because here's the thing, you don't have to rush down to 0. It depends on the matchup. Some matchups, yes, you kind of want to just rush down to 0. Other matchups, you don't really mind just like playing out SABO blocker while swinging like 5, 7, 9 into face, right? It kind of depends on the matchup, but yeah, you want to get down to 0 at like the desired timing, at your own desired timing, and then just start playing out your 5 costs. You got black SABO, yellow Ace, and yellow Luffy. And the thing that obviously, if you haven't noticed already, you run 8 cost Moria in this deck, and this card is already broken as is. This card is a menace. This card is super broken in Black Yellow Luffy, because while yes, you can just play these, like play the 5 costs out of your trash or hand into your life, and then obviously yes, you use the kids. The real clutch play is to do this. You do it once or twice throughout the game where you're just playing the kids out of hand, and then what happens is you have kids and 5 costs in the trash, and then, well, wouldn't you know it, 2 for leader effect and 8 for Moria makes a perfect 10. So all you gotta do is put 2 on leader, put the 5 costs that you would like to play into your life, and then play Moria for 8, and then wouldn't you know it, all the kids are 2 costs, so you can play 2 of them from the trash. So just to give you a quick example, let's say you have a SABO and an Ace in trash, right? You're at 0 life, you put 2 on leader, you put Ace and SABO in that order. You always want to put SABO last so that he can get the protection for everyone. And then you play Moria, and wouldn't you know it, you have an Ace and a SABO kid in your trash already. Wow, that's great. Then you play those 2 onto the field, use the effect immediately, and now you have a 7k rush and a 6k blocker, and now nothing can get KO'd on your opponent's turn. And what? You have an 8 cost Moria on the field too? Dude, it's crazy. If you can chain these towards the end of the game, you win. You just win. You're going to be at a 9k the entire time. It's ridiculous, right? Now, you really need Flampe from EBO1. That really makes this deck tick. And then other things, Egghead Luffy, and there's quite a few variants going on right now. There's some tech cards coming in and out. Whitebeard actually works pretty well in this deck, or Newgate, and there you see some like Kuzan, like KO kind of variants. I don't think that really works until you get Egghead Luffy, because yes you can use SABO, but I think until you have like at least 2 cards that KO, I don't really think it's worth it. I honestly still don't think the Kuzan variants are the strongest. I think just consistency is key, and like it is a good tech card. It depends on your meta. Honestly, it depends on the meta that you're in for some of the cards. But yeah, this Sanji, I think it's okay in this deck. Like, it's hard. There's a few tech spots, right, where like some of these events, like you can run Amaru in this deck, you can run Newgate. I just wanted to, for another 2k in the place of Flampe, really. It's just like This, you can cycle your life, and it's add up to 1 card from the top of your deck to your life. So you can choose to just take your life, and then obviously it's just like a 5k attack, right? So if your opponent is really stalling you out, you have Sanji, Makino, and Hiyori to kind of take your own life. And with Makino, you can rearrange it, right? So you can start playing the kid versions out immediately. SABO is pretty good here. Obviously, Black SABO is the best of the 3 brothers in this deck, along with this Luffy. I'd say these 2 are tied, right? Because like this Black SABO is obviously it's how you beat Yamato, like how you defend yourself against Yamato, how you defend yourself against a bunch of decks. It's how you beat Black. Like Black Yellow Luffy just kind of destroys Moria. It's really good against Moria. Yeah, there's just a lot of things that, like, obviously SABO's really good. This Luffy is amazing because, like I said before, like once you get down to 0 life and you have these Luffys on the board, boom, instant, like, free 2 plus 2k, so it's an 8k. You just, and it doesn't really click until you start using it. You're like, oh my god, that's so strong, because I literally just use the effect, put 1 Dawn on Luffy, and then you got a 9k, right? And if you have 2 or 3 of these on the board, it's pretty crazy. But yeah, that's it for like the main like workings of this deck, I'd say. You want to just like start searching out. You want to have a good ratio of, like, because with Black Yellow Luffy, people are going to starve you out pretty hard, so you're not going to be getting that life taken immediately. So it does help to have like a SABO in hand. And again, this is very matchup dependent. It's hard to say like which exactly cards you want, but you want a good mix of like search, kid, adult, and a Moria is nice. Like, again, obviously against like Yamato or something, you mulligan for SABO, like the blocker SABO. Everything else is like kind of having a good mix, and this is one of the things that actually makes the deck really hard, is like determining what you need, when you need it, what to get rid of, and like there's so many small decisions that you have to make with this deck, and I think that's what makes it the most difficult. I think this is the hardest deck out of all 3 to play, but it's really rewarding. It has like a very high ceiling, and yeah, it can be kind of slow. I don't really love playing against Black Yellow Luffy too much, because it just, you know, it is cool that it's like really different, but it's almost like Nami, where it's like it's fun to play every now and then, but if you play 3 in a row, it's like really not that much fun. But it's a really interesting deck. It's really cool. I'm not the best at it, but I do have a video already up with Black Yellow Luffy, so if you just want to like kind of see how it works and everything, feel free to check that out. But yeah, that's about it for this. Moria is just busted in this deck. It's really good. And yeah, that's it. So let's move on to the next one. All right, and our last leader, our last brother, our last bro is SABO. Red, yellow, SABO. Red, yellow is a color combination that I really love. Red, yellow, and green are my favorite colors in One Piece. So outside of Ace, SABO is definitely my next favorite. And because there are a few versions that you can do, and I think a lot of people have been showing really cool kind of like aggro, running like Rush Luffy and all that kind of versions. I know Eggman has some good stuff on that, so go check that out if you haven't. I wanted to show some different ones. There are some cool Revolutionary Army builds that you can make, which is fitting for SABO. And then you know I gotta have the Wano version too. There's like a Wano Whitebeard version too, and I'll show you guys that after this. But let's just go over the leader effect. Is Dawn times 1, activate main once per turn. You may add 1 of your cost 3 or higher characters with 7,000 power or higher to the top of your life face up. Give up to 1 of your characters plus 2,000 power until the start of your next turn. So it's kind of like a double combo play here, where you want to have a 7k power character on your field. Then you hopefully like you're attacking with it already or something, and then you have the 1 Dawn on your leader. You place that 7k, let's say you put 2 Dawn on Karasu, right? You put the Karasu back into your life, and then let's say you have a Zoro on the field already. Boom, give him plus 2k. That's a free 7k attacker, and you healed, right? This works really well with triggers. That's why you have a lot of trigger cards in here. Like for example, instead of Karasu, if you have a Kikunojo, this is really strong, because it's just like endless Kikunojos, where you put 1 Dawn on Kikunojo, you swing 7 or however many Dawn you want, right? And then you use leader effect, and you put Kikunojo back in your life, give something else plus 2k, and then bam, you get Kikunojo back on the field the next turn if you take a life, right? And the cool thing is it's until the start of your next turn. So if you give Zoro a plus 2k, it's a 7k on your opponent's turn, which makes it a lot harder to get rid of. And you don't really think about it until you see it in action, and you're like, dang, that is so strong, because it's protecting your characters, which is great. It's like SABO. This is like the exact opposite of the red-black SABO, which I thought was so cool. They really knocked it out of the park with the like effects and everything here, especially with SABO on this one, just because it's like he's a protector. He's like, you know, oh, he's in the Revolutionary Army, he's building people up, he's helping people. It's just so great. So quickly to go over the Revolutionary build here, the main focus is obviously a lot of the Revolutionary Army stuff, cheating characters out. It's not as defensive as some of the other builds, so this is a little bit, it's like a slightly less glass cannon-y Bello Betty, if I could like say it, and I don't know, like put it into words. So I got 2 Rush Zoro here, 4 of the cheat out, a 5,000 power or less Ivankov here. Karasu is just amazing. Koala, yeah, it's the 2k and the minus 3k power, which is really good, you know, paired with Lindbergh and just reducing power for stuff. The Bello Betty Search, Morley, which I think is actually an underrated card. I always like Morley in my Revolutionary Army builds, just because, man, when you get this out of trigger, if your opponent has a blocker and they're expecting that blocker to essentially keep them safe or like protect them from you going for lethal, and you get a Morley out of life, I don't know how many games I've won just because like people don't really account for this card, and then you get it out of life. Yes, it's like a lucky instance, but you can obviously just play this card too and just save it for when you need it. It's just really strong. A lot of pressure that I think is hard to play around, kind of like Rush Luffy with the Dawn 2 can't be blocked. Lindbergh, I stand by Lindbergh. I think he's a really strong card. I think it's just really good. This is a good one to kind of cycle in and out of life as well, because if, say you're kind of bricking, if you just put this card back in your life and you have cards like you have a Kikunojo that you weren't going to play anyways, you just trash that and play this for free, or not for free, but play it out of life, right? This Ivankov is a new one from OP06. On play, look at the top 3 cards, and then obviously play a Revolutionary card with 5,000 power or less, and it's really good. It doesn't have a counter, so it kind of hurts, and it's a 6,000 power, so it is easy to put the 1 Dawn on to get to the 7k power that you need for leader effect. I think you kind of just need it, like you're trying to go for a lot of these combos, you're trying to chain things together. That's what this deck kind of relies on. It does hurt that it doesn't have a counter. It's not my favorite card, actually. I don't know, I kind of like this one better. It's just this one, if like, again, if you high roll with SABO, this is a little bit more of a high rolly deck, just because it doesn't have as many defenses. But we also have the 4 Satori, trigger out of life, 4 Kikunojo. Again, this is one of the main cards of this deck, and just, do I need to say any more? Kikunojo, it's really good, right? One of the decks I was referencing to make this build had 4 of the Banish Inazuma, where if it's 7k power or more, it gains Banish, the 5 cost, or sorry, it might be a 4 cost, I forgot. But there was only 8 2Ks, and I needed a little bit more counter, because sometimes, again, like when you high roll, it's amazing, but when you brick, man. You get bricked up with this deck. But yeah, I just needed to get rid of 2 counterless cards and add in another 2, because you have so many trigger cards too that Hiyori is kind of clutch. And I'm actually thinking about like trying to see if there's a way I can run 4 Hiyori to have 8 2k counters and kind of just balance this deck out a little bit more. And then here at the tail end, we just have the 4 copies and 4 copies of Kid and Adult Ace. It's just so strong. This is so amazing. What you do is like, and this is what's so good about the kind of Straw Hat version of the build too, where you're running Rush Luffy and all that. You have Ace, you play Ace on the board, right? And you can do this all in 1 turn if you have enough Dawn. I think it needs to be 9 or 10 Dawn, but you either play Ace or have Ace on the board, and hopefully you're 2 or less life already. You get the Rush with Ace, right? And then you can put Ace back into your life with leader effect, and then play the Kid Ace. Use the effect, you get Ace, Rush Ace back on the board, and your leader gets plus 2k. It's amazing. Like, when you can chain these things together, it's like almost unstoppable. It's similar to Blue Yellow Ace, like I've been saying. Like the rush aggro high rolling of it is amazing, and yeah, it's just awesome. And then 3 Amaru, I think it's just good. It's kind of an aggro centric deck here, so this event obviously is just really good. This is kind of a tech spot, honestly. Like the Zoro, Hiyori, and the Amaru are kind of tech spots. If you want to run the Revolutionary Army build, I suggest trying something like this and then just like salting to taste, right? But that's the main gist of this one. Let's look at the Wano Whitebeard deck real quick before we finish things up. Alright, lastly, we have what is a really fun deck here. This deck, I don't know if it's if I prefer this over the Revolutionary Army build. But I love Wano, so you know I had to try it. This deck can also be kind of rewarding or punishing, just depending on how well you're drawing and everything. But we are running 12 2Ks, you know. You have, essentially, you just have the Whitebeard engine and you have the Wano engine. Obviously, there's no yellow Wano searcher, so that does kind of hold the deck back. I do think if there was a yellow Wano searcher, this deck would be a lot more viable, and it would actually be extremely powerful. I think you could build something that would work really well. But you have your Ezo searcher for all the Wano stuff, or Whitebeard stuff, sorry. Ezo is Wano, but it's a Whitebeard searcher, right? So this deck kind of revolves around like getting Haruta on the field and the Nami to get the free leader effect, the free Dawn for leader effect going every turn. And then just, you know, you have a ton of triggers. You can run Momonosuke blocker in here too, which maybe you should. There's a lot of different variants to try out here. Like, you could even get rid of 9-cost Yamato and maybe run Momo blocker or something like that. But again, this is a little bit more of the aggro version, because what you're doing here is like you are trying to establish just a lot of these Wano characters, and then just start cycling through them and putting them back into life to get played out free every turn. So like Yamato, the leader, one of the things you do have to rely on is getting your opponent down to 3 or less life, because if they're not, like, all these effects are just invalid, right? Yes, you can still put them into life, but they're not going to be going onto the board for free. So that's really important. You have a Marco blocker. Obviously you have Newgate, and yeah, you can put Newgate, like, you can put all these cards back into your life, which is just kind of crazy. So if you're in a dire situation like that, you can always put Newgate back into life, and then, I don't know, you just play it again the next turn and go to a 7k leader. You know, there's just a lot of options here, right? And it's a really fun deck. Again, like, it's a high risk, high reward kind of thing with SABO, but I do really love decks like that. And I just wanted to show off some other builds that you may not have seen yet, something that if you want to try out. And if you have a cool spicy Wano list for Red Yellow SABO, please tell me, because I played this in real life for a while when it came out. I played a lot of SABO and a lot of Ace, and unfortunately it was just rough. It was a little rough until like EBO 1 came out, and but yeah, and OPO 7 obviously. But I do think there's a lot of potential with these leaders, especially SABO and especially Ace. Everyone obviously knows Luffy is strong, but don't count them out, because Ace is actually really, really strong in OPO 7. And because it's blue, it plays really well into obviously Black Yellow Luffy and Enel, and Red Purple Law for that matter, if you play the Gravity Blade. So yeah, if you have a cool spicy Wano list that you come up with for the Red Yellow SABO, please let me know. I would love to see it and love to test it out. So that's going to be it for the Red Yellow SABO builds. I hope you guys liked them, and that's it for all the leaders. Alright guys, that's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope it was helpful. This was supposed to be just kind of like an overview, general guide for everything, and to show you some deck lists that I've been cooking up. But if you have your own deck list for the Ace or SABO builds in particular, please let me know. If you got some spice, I'd love to see it. I will be playing these over on Twitch a little bit more in the next coming weeks, especially as EBO 1 rolls out in the West, because that's when I do think these leaders really get cooking. Again, I do have a Black Yellow Luffy video already out on my YouTube. I will have Ace and then SABO coming out soon as well, so keep an eye out for those. If you liked the video, consider liking, subscribing, and all that jazz. Check me out on Twitch, and go check out the community over on Discord. And that's it, so just thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.